The first time I saw the house, it felt like it had been waiting for me. A cedar cabin nestled deep in the Pacific Northwest, where towering fir trees whispered in the wind, and the air smelled of earth and pine. I bought it without hesitation. After years of city noise and sideways glances from people who thought I didn't belong, I wanted peace. This house, this forest, was my sanctuary. The nearest town, Ridgeway, was small, mostly white, with the kind of forced politeness that never quite masked its unease with outsiders. And by outsiders, I mean people like me, a black man with dreadlocks, wearing hiking boots instead of Jordans. Still, I kept to myself. I wasn't here to make friends. I was here to breathe. For a while, everything was perfect. Mornings with hot coffee on my porch, watching deer pick their way through the underbrush. Nights with a crackling fire and the distant howl of coyotes. Then the letters started. At first, they seemed harmless. Just standard homeowners association, HOA notices, printed on thick white paper with crisp black ink. Reminder: all residents must submit property modifications for approval. I ignored it. I hadn't modified anything. Then, another reminder: HOA access required for emergency inspections. That one made me pause. Emergency? What emergency? My house wasn't connected to Ridgeway's grid. No city water, no gas, no reason for them to inspect anything. I shrugged it off. Maybe they were just overly bureaucratic. But something about the tone nagged at me. An insistence, an entitlement. A week later, I came home to find a note taped to my front door. Failure to comply with HOA regulations may result in restricted property access. What? I reread the note twice. Restricted access? How could they restrict access to my own home? Frustration curled in my chest, but I pushed it down. There had to be a misunderstanding. The next morning, I drove into town to visit the HOA office. It was a small, pristine building on Main Street, sandwiched between a boutique wine shop and a real estate agency. The kind of place where people wore pastel sweaters over their shoulders and spoke in clipped, polite tones. Inside, the receptionist barely looked up before sighing. A white woman in her 50s, with frosted blonde hair and an expression like she smelled something bad. "Can I help you?" she asked, dragging out the words. "Yeah," I said, holding up the letter. "I think there's been some mistake." She took it, skimmed it, then gave me a tight, artificial smile. "Oh, there's no mistake, Mr. Carter." I stiffened. Something about the way she said my name, the too smooth delivery, made my skin prickle. "You're required to provide HOA representatives access to your property for inspection. Failure to do so will result in penalties." "Inspection for what?" I asked. Her smile widened. "That information is only available to compliant residents." Something was wrong. I could feel it, creeping in like the first hint of rot beneath polished wood. I leave the HOA office with a knot tightening in my gut. The air outside feels heavier, the distant buzz of Ridgeway's quiet streets pressing in. Something isn't right. Back home, I sit on my porch, staring at the letter. Restricted access, penalties, compliance. The words gnaw at me. Then, I notice something. A car, parked just beyond the tree line, half hidden by the thick underbrush. A black luxury SUV with tinted windows, sitting there like it belongs. Watching, I stand, stretching casually, pretending not to notice. The moment I do, the SUV's engine hums to life. It pulls away slowly, deliberately, as if letting me know, "We see you." My stomach twists. I check my property line the next morning. I find something new. Tiny orange flags staked into the dirt near my driveway. HOA markers. Surveying? For what? Then the cameras go up. Not mine, theirs. I spot them hidden in the trees, small black domes peeking from branches. I wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't caught the glint of a lens reflecting sunlight. They're pointed at my house. By noon, I'm back at the HOA office, anger simmering beneath my skin. This time I meet him, Landon Whitmore III, HOA president, mid-50s, tanned like a country club regular, with silver-streaked hair and a Rolex that probably costs more than my mortgage. He greets me with the kind of smile that's more performance than welcome. "Mr. Carter," he says smoothly, resting his manicured hands on the polished oak desk. "How can I help you?" "You can start by explaining why there are cameras pointed at my house," I say. His smile doesn't falter. If anything, it sharpens. "Routine security measures." "Security from what?" His expression is almost amused, like he's indulging a slow learner. "We've had some concerns. A few residents reported suspicious activity in the area." My jaw tightens. Suspicious activity? I live alone, miles from the nearest house. He folds his hands. "Exactly. A secluded property like yours. Well, it raises certain liabilities." "Liabilities?" I lean forward. "Cut the crap, Whitmore. Why are you really watching my house?" He exhales like he's dealing with a child. "Mr. Carter, our community has standards. Regulations ensure all properties align with those standards. You've neglected to participate in HOA oversight. That raises questions." "Questions about what?" "About why someone would want to live out there," he says smoothly. "Alone. Unregulated. And there it is. Not outright said, but clear as day. A black man living in the woods, keeping to himself? That's suspicious." I stare at him, feeling the weight of every subtle insult, every veiled threat. Whitmore taps his fingers against his desk. "Be reasonable. Grant HOA access." And this tension disappears. I don't answer, but inside, I know this isn't going away. It's only beginning. I don't sleep that night. The woods around my house used to feel safe, a fortress of towering trees and silence. Now they feel invaded, watched. The next morning, I drive into town. If the HOA wants to play games, fine. I'll play too. I start at the county records office, a cramped, fluorescent-lit building that smells like old paper and bad coffee. A tired-looking clerk taps at her keyboard while I wait. "Your property isn't in Ridgeway's HOA jurisdiction," she finally says, frowning at the screen. My heart skips. "What do you mean?" She turns the monitor toward me. "Your house sits outside HOA-regulated land. They can't enforce rules on you." I exhale sharply. Gotcha. Armed with this, I storm back to the HOA office. Whitmore isn't in, but his assistant, a younger guy with too much gel in his hair, barely looks up when I tell him I need to speak to the president. "He's busy," the assistant says. "Then unbusy him." The assistant sighs, muttering something about certain types of people, as he dials a number. I don't miss it. Minutes later, Whitmore appears, fake smile intact. "Mr. Carter," he says smoothly. "What an unexpected." "Cut the act." I slap the printed county record onto his desk. "I'm not under HOA jurisdiction. You have no authority over my property." Whitmore barely glances at the paper before leaning back in his chair. "Oh dear," he says, voice dripping with mock sympathy. "There's been a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" I laugh, but there's no humor in it. "You sent me letters threatening restricted access, put up cameras, sent people onto my land without permission. That's not a misunderstanding. That's harassment." Whitmore sighs, like he's dealing with a child throwing a tantrum. "Mr. Carter, let's be reasonable." "Reasonable? You mean compliant?" His lips twitch. "Look, you may not be technically under HOA governance, but let's not pretend that means you're exempt from community standards." There it is again. The coded language. Clench my jaw. "Remove the cameras. Stop the letters. Leave me alone." Whitmore's smile fades. "I don't think you understand how things work here, Mr. Carter." He stands, adjusting his cufflinks. "This community, our community, prides itself on a certain character." He steps closer, lowering his voice. "And some people just don't fit." The air between us crackles. "Are you threatening me?" I ask, voice low. Whitmore chuckles. "A threat? No. Think of it as a warning." I stare at him, pulse pounding. Then I turn and walk out. This isn't over. Gathering allies. I stop at the local diner on the way home, still fuming. The place is small, warm, the kind where everyone knows everyone. The moment I step in, conversation dims. People watch me. Not all of them, but enough. Some with pity. Some with curiosity. Others with something colder, disapproval. I slide onto a bar stool. The waitress, a black woman in her 40s with tired eyes, approaches hesitantly. Her name tag reads Tasha. "Coffee?" she asks. I nod. She pours, then leans in slightly. "You pissed off the HO, didn't you?" I blink. "What makes you say that?" She smirks, but it doesn't reach her eyes. Because Whitmore's been running this town for years. And whenever someone steps out of line, they start looking over their shoulder. I study her. "You've seen this before?" Tasha sighs. "A couple years back, a Latino family moved into one of the HOA properties. Whitmore made their lives hell. Wrong paint color, yard too messy, violations that didn't exist. They fought back, thought they could win." I swallow. "What happened?" Her expression darkens. "They moved. Had to. House was foreclosed on after missed payments. Ones they swore they never missed." My stomach turns. "He doesn't like outsiders," she continues. "Especially ones who don't know their place." I exhale, gripping the coffee mug. I need more than just a county record. I need proof. The breaking point. That night, I set up my own cameras, ones I control. Hidden in trees under the porch eaves, covering the angles they don't want me to see. And within hours, I catch them. Men in HOA-branded vests, trespassing, surveying my land. I watch from my darkened window, my fists clenched. They think they own this place. They think they own me. Not for long. The next morning, I walk into the HOA office like I own the place. The receptionist barely has time to scowl before I push past her desk and throw open the conference room doors. Inside, Whitmore is seated at the head of a long, polished table, surrounded by a handful of HOA board members. Older, white, the type who wear quiet wealth like armor. They all turn, startled. Whitmore blinks, then smirks. "Mr. Carter, barging in unannounced? That's not very neighborly." I toss a thick manila envelope onto the table. "Tell me, Whitmore, how much do you like being on camera?" His smirk flickers just for a second. Then he leans back, lacing his fingers together. "Excuse me?" I pull out my phone and tap the screen. The room fills with grainy, nighttime footage. Men in HOA vests creeping through my property, marking trees, taking measurements, whispering to each other. A few board members shift uncomfortably. Whitmore exhales through his nose, glancing at the others before turning his cool gaze back to me. And I arch an eyebrow. "Trespassing, illegal surveillance, harassment. You and your board are about 5 seconds away from a lawsuit." A woman across the table clears her throat. "Now, hold on." Whitmore silences her with a look. Then slowly he stands. "Mr. Carter," he says smoothly, stepping around the table. "I understand you're upset, but let's not make this into something it's not." I fold my arms. "Oh? And what is this exactly?" He chuckles, shaking his head. "It's simple. You've been uncooperative with the HOA. We tried to include you in our community, and you've made it very clear you don't want to be part of it." "Because I'm not part of it," I snap. "Legally, my house isn't under HOA jurisdiction. You have no authority over my land." Whitmore sighs dramatically. "That's technically true. But you see, Mr. Carter, your property exists within our sphere of influence." I narrow my eyes. "You're what?" A slow, smug smile spreads across his face. "We shape Ridgeway. We determine who fits. And frankly," he steps closer, voice dropping to a whisper, "you do not fit." The board members watch in silence. Some look uncomfortable, others smug, as if enjoying the power play. I let the words settle. Then slowly I smile. "That's fascinating," I say, "because the county sheriff is very interested in your sphere of influence." Whitmore's expression tightens. I pull another envelope from my jacket. "These are official complaints I've filed with the county. And since you love cameras so much," I slide my phone across the table, playing the next clip, audio this time. Whitmore's own voice, recorded from our last meeting. You may not be technically under HOA governance, but that doesn't mean you're exempt from community standards. Let's not pretend you belong out there. Some people just don't fit. The words hang in the air like a gunshot. One of the board members, a man with graying hair, clears his throat. Whitmore, what is this? Whitmore's jaw flexes. Out of context, he says quickly. This is being spun. Really? I cut in. Because I also spoke with Tasha at the diner. She told me how you harassed that Latino family a few years ago. How they mysteriously lost their house after fighting back. The board members murmur, exchanging glances. I lean forward. Here's what's going to happen, Whitmore. You're going to remove every camera. You're going to leave my property alone. And if I so much as see another HOA letter in my mailbox, I take all of this. I tap the files, the phone, the evidence. To the press. Silence. Whitmore's nostrils flare. He turns to his board. Are you really going to let him dictate how we run our community? A few nod in agreement, but others look less sure. A woman near the end of the table speaks. If any of this gets out, we could face a serious lawsuit. Another man sighs. Maybe we should back off. This is getting messy. Whitmore looks at them, then at me. His jaw tightens. You think you've won, he says quietly. I stare him down. I know I have. His hands curl into fists, but he knows he's trapped. The game is up. I turn to leave, but pause at the door. Oh, and Whitmore? I glance back, letting my voice drop. Stay the hell off my land. Whitmore's face is a mask of barely contained rage, but I can see the cracks forming. His jaw is tight, his fingers clenched. He's been untouchable for years, hiding behind his title, his influence, his carefully curated image. But now, he knows I've got him cornered. I start to turn away, ready to walk out and let the weight of what I just dropped settle on him. But he's not done. Wait, he says. I stop. Whitmore squares his shoulders, slipping back into that smug confidence. You really think this little stunt is going to change anything? He scoffs. You have no idea how things work here, do you? He gestures toward the board members. These people aren't going to turn on me over some edited recording and a few complaints from a troublemaker. I raise an eyebrow. A troublemaker? You heard me, he sneers. This town trusts me. I built this community. Who do you think they'll believe? Me? Or an angry outsider trying to stir up problems? I almost laugh. He still thinks he holds all the power. So I open my phone again. You mean this edited recording? I tap the screen. A new video plays, clearer, sharper. Not grainy security footage, but a direct recording from my hidden cameras. The view? Whitmore himself, standing on my land late at night, overseeing the men who were marking trees and setting up cameras. His voice cuts through the silence in the boardroom. Make sure these cameras stay hidden. I don't want him knowing he's being watched. We'll keep pushing. If we make it difficult enough, he'll either leave or give us what we want. This land belongs to us, not some outsider who doesn't belong here. The color drains from Whitmore's face. The boardroom erupts. Jesus, Whitmore. One of the members mutters. That's illegal. A woman gasps. Another board member shakes his head. What the hell were you thinking? Whitmore's mouth opens and closes, his face twisting into something ugly. This is doctored, he spits, pointing at my phone. He's manipulating the footage. Really? I interrupt, because I sent copies to my lawyer. The timestamp matches county records showing when your men illegally trespassed on my property. A hushed murmur runs through the board. Whitmore's eyes dart around the room, searching for support. But the faces staring back at him aren't backing him up anymore. Then the doors to the conference room swing open. Sheriff Daniels steps inside. A hush falls over the room. The sheriff, an older white man with a thick mustache and a hard-set face, adjusts his belt and clears his throat. Mr. Carter. He nods toward me before turning his gaze to Whitmore. Whitmore straightens, trying to mask his panic. Sheriff, he says smoothly, this is a private HOA meeting. It was, Daniel says flatly. Until I got multiple complaints of trespassing and illegal surveillance. Just came from reviewing the footage at the county office. His eyes lock onto Whitmore. You want to explain what the hell you were doing on Mr. Carter's property in the middle of the night? Whitmore forces a laugh. Sheriff, come on. This is all a big misunderstanding. Cut the bullshit. Daniel's voice is firm. You've been harassing a homeowner who isn't even under HOA jurisdiction. You sent people onto his land without consent. That's trespassing. You installed cameras aimed at his home. That's illegal surveillance. You sent letters threatening penalties that don't even apply. That's fraud. Whitmore stares at him, his mouth twitching. Daniels takes a step closer. And from what I hear, this isn't the first time you've pulled something like this. You used your position to intimidate people out of their homes. That's coercion. The room is silent except for the sound of Whitmore's breathing, shallow, quick. One of the board members, the older man from earlier, shakes his head. Landon, we trusted you. A woman whispers. He's ruined us. Whitmore's confidence cracks. His face turns red, his nostrils flaring. You're all overreacting, he snaps. I did what needed to be done. He turns to the sheriff. This town needs people like me. You really think a jury's going to side with him over me? He points a shaking finger at me. I've been running this HOA for 15 years. I have connections. Not anymore, you don't. Daniels cuts in. The county's launching a formal investigation into your past HOA dealings. And as of this morning, the Ridgeway HOA is being audited for financial misconduct. Whitmore freezes. You can either come quietly, Daniels says, pulling out his cuffs, or we can do this the hard way. The board members step back as Whitmore stares at the cuffs. His entire world, the power, the control, the untouchable status, crumbling right in front of him. He takes a shaky breath. This town will regret this. I step forward, meeting his eyes. No, Whitmore. This town is finally waking up. The sheriff cuffs him. The last thing I see as he's led away is the faces of the board members, watching their king fall. They marched Whitmore out of the HOA office in cuffs, right past the same people who once treated him like a king. A few gasps, murmurs, a couple of phones raised to capture the moment. By the time I stepped outside, the news had already spread. The diner, the community center, the neighborhood Facebook groups. Within an hour, everyone knew. Landon Whitmore was finished. And justice? It wasn't just poetic, it was public. The fallout was swift. Newspapers ran headlines about corrupt HOA leader faces investigation for harassment and fraud. Local news stations replayed the footage from my recordings. Homeowners started coming forward. Families who had been pushed out. People who had been forced to pay unfair fines. Victims of Whitmore's community standards. The county launched a full-blown investigation. Bank records surfaced. Misused HOA funds. Questionable land deals. Even a few instances where Whitmore had personally profited from homes that mysteriously ended up in foreclosure. By the end of the week, his assets were frozen. By the end of the month, the Ridgeway HOA was completely dismantled. Without Whitmore's grip, people finally talked. A former HOA member admitted they'd been pressured into enforcing unfair rules. A real estate agent revealed how Whitmore had steered white buyers toward certain homes, while making sure Black and Latino families got discouraged or priced out. The more the truth came out, the harder it became for his supporters to defend him. Even the ones who had backed him for years started distancing themselves. That's the thing about power, it only protects you as long as people believe you still have it. One evening, about a month after Whitmore's arrest, I was sitting on my porch, watching the sun dip behind the treetops. For the first time in weeks, everything felt quiet, peaceful. I didn't have to check my security cameras every night. Didn't have to worry about some hidden HOA rule being used against me. My land was mine again. And then, footsteps. I looked up. Tasha stood at the edge of my driveway, hesitating like she wasn't sure if she should be there. I waved her over. She exhaled and walked up the steps, rubbing her hands together. Hey, I just wanted to say, what you did. She shook her head, smiling. That was huge. I shrugged. Had to be done. She chuckled. You know, a lot of folks in town were scared of Whitmore. Even when we hated him, we thought he was untouchable. She met my eyes. But you didn't just fight back. You won. Something about the way she said it made my chest tighten. She glanced around my land. The towering trees, the endless sky. I get why you fought so hard for this place. It's beautiful out here. I nodded. Yeah, it is. A beat of silence. Then, anyway, she said, turning to leave, just wanted to say thanks for standing up when the rest of us were too scared to. I watched her go, something settling deep in my bones. She wasn't the only one. Over the next few weeks, people who had never spoken to me before stopped by. Some just nodded, a quiet acknowledgement of what had happened. Others, like Tasha, admitted they had known things were wrong but had stayed silent. Some even apologized. And while that didn't erase what had happened, it was something. A shift. The beginning of something better. A few days later, I took a slow walk through my land. No cameras watching me. No trespassers marking trees. No threats disguised as community guidelines. Just me. My home. My freedom. And this time, nobody could take it from me.